Every day, nearly 50 children in the United States are diagnosed with cancer, a staggering statistic that reminds us why advocacy and action are more crucial than ever. Today's guest, Rob, is on the forefront of the fight. As the treasurer and core volunteer for Voices Against Cancer, Rob dedicates his efforts to raising awareness and funding for pediatric cancer research, creating a supportive community for families navigating this difficult journey. He's also the founder and chief fundraiser for Ian's Thumbs Up Fund, working through the Avera McKinnon Foundation to provide essential resources for children facing medical challenges. From leading the annual 605 Pop Culture Con, which unites fans and celebrities to battle childhood cancer, to his extensive work with the St. Baldrick's Foundation, Rob is a passionate advocate for giving children a voice in their fight against this disease. Join me as we dive into Rob's journey, the vital work he's doing, and how we can all take action to make a difference. You're listening to Act to Impact with Brandi DeVries. Through heartfelt stories of resilience, hope, and community, I share my personal experience as a longtime advocate and fundraiser for the national nonprofit Children's Cancer Research Fund. Invite pediatric cancer families to tell their stories and highlight individuals who use their unique gifts to create a positive impact. Welcome to Act to Impact. I wanted to thank everyone for listening and for sharing Act to Impact. You are helping me reach more action takers and difference makers who are people just like you by doing that. So before we dive into this episode, let's pause. Show me how you take action and click that follow button if you haven't yet, or like this episode and leave a comment. All right, let's dive into this episode with Rob. Rob, welcome to Act to Impact. I'm so glad to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So I like to start off by explaining how we were introduced or how I'm introduced to guests that are on the show. So we were introduced through another guest that was on the show, Becca. She is also from South Dakota, which is where you reside as well. And she was my actually episode number 3 guest, I think. So if people wanted to go back and listen to her episode, I would definitely encourage them to do so because I think yours and hers will tie together. But when I had asked her if she would be on Act to Impact, she then almost immediately had said right away that I should contact you. And she was very quick to take action and to connect us through social media. So I'm grateful for her for doing that. And I am very, very grateful that you are here with me today. That brings us to you. And why don't you start out by telling us a little about yourself, Rob? What maybe some hobbies you have in addition to the pediatric cancer advocacy involvement that you have. Where you're from, what you do for your day job, and maybe a proud moment or something recently.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So yes, Beck and we've known each other for quite a few years through the St. Baldrick's Foundation. So she's we try and tag team with, okay, whose turn is it to do this, and let's see how we can spread the word and everything else like that. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here. So yeah, I'm born and raised in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and am married to my beautiful wife, Nicole. She is a child psychiatrist, and our daughter, Cassandra, is just about 20 years old, and she is a freshman college student at Augustana University here in Sioux Falls. And our son, Ian, passed away in 2014 at the age of 12. That was after his third battle with cancer, and we can talk more about that later. But he's kind of obviously the driving force behind everything with what I do. A little quick background about myself. I actually was a teacher for well over a decade. That's what I had went to school for, and got out and did that, working different jobs and coaching and trying to help get Nicole through medical school. And so we did the typical, young married couple and everything. And so I taught fifth, sixth, seventh grade for over a decade, and I was assistant volleyball coach in Harrisburg, and uh, I loved coaching the hurdles. So I was a track coach in Harrisburg and out in Brandon Valley for several years, and absolutely loved that. And then my wife finished residency, and we were talking. We had Cassandra and Ian, both young kids. We both knew and we valued the importance of family and being there for the kids. And so we talked about it. And frankly, it's like I'm not going to be losing that much income as a teacher. So I decided to be a stay-at-home dad, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I loved every opportunity I had. And just by intervention, I don't know, divine intervention, luck, however you want to phrase it. But that was the same year that Ian actually was diagnosed with cancer. It was an emergency surgery, 7-hour brain surgery to remove a golf ball sized tumor in his brain. And that's how we found out that he had cancer. So I continued to be a stay at home dad. And after he passed, Cassandra was in school. I was kind of like, I need to get out and do something. And so I was a lunch lady for a little bit and kind of did odds and ends while I continued to be the volunteer event organizer for the St. Baldrick's Foundation, the local head shaving events. And that was kind of my initial springboard for my activism and my volunteerism with childhood cancer. Ian was asked to be the first honored child in Sioux Falls back in 2010. And so I've actually been helping and been involved basically with the nonprofit volunteerism since 2010. And so that's kind of all I've known for quite a while. I'm a part-time bookkeeper right now for a local property management group, and nice flexible schedule which offers me the opportunity to meet with different groups, to speak to different facilities. I have 3 other meetings and appointments that I'm going to be speaking at within the next month to help spread the word with that. And so I always tell people I'm a part-time bookkeeper, but a full-time advocate for kids and their families. So
Absolutely.
some little odd fact is I just recently made it through the final round of uh, auditions for the Wheel of Fortune TV show.
Wow.
So I don't think I made it quite good enough, but they do several different virtual and online interviews and different rounds of tryouts, and I made it through the last one, and they're just like, well, thanks, and we'll let you know if you have the opportunity to come out, and otherwise you can try again in another year. So I've learned to kind of live out of my comfort zone, and we're here one time around, and so we want to make the best of it and take advantage of all the opportunities that are given to us. And so that's kind of one quirky little fact. I used to
Yeah.
like to dress up in the Star Wars and the superhero life-size action figures, and I do that for a lot of the different charities and organizations around here. But turning 50 this year is kind of I'm not going to call it a midlife crisis, but a reevaluation of what I can do and what I can't do.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I understand that. My husband and we turned 40 this year. We
Okay.
just turned 40 in February, and our birthdays are 2 days apart. And so we wanted to do something big, like bucket list big. And
Yep.
so our plan was to hike to Mount Everest Base Camp in
Wow.
Nepal. Well, we were all for it. Were booking our flights. Long story short, the flights kept not going through. And then we found out that there was some things with our trekking company that were also falling through. And so we just felt like, maybe this was not the thing that we were supposed to be doing. But we
Yeah.
thought we wanted to do it because we thought it would like push ourselves a little bit, challenge ourselves at and remember a milestone birthday too. So yeah, I think that's great that you're continuing to do those things. Well, tell me, do you mind sharing a little bit more about Ian then?
Of course, yes. I always tell people that I will talk forever and ever and remember his memories, and I tell people that someday I hope to be like him.
Mm.
just he had ever since a young age just been an old soul, and his quick wit and his one-liners, and always ahead of his time in different things. And him and his sister were 3 years apart, but beautiful, both have the same beautiful red hair, same beautiful blue eyes. The percentages of having one child red hair and blue eyes is extremely rare, and we had two.
Wow.
And after his initial diagnosis and treatment, because of the radiation, because of the chemotherapy, he actually was, of course, his growth was stunted and different things like that. So a lot of times the two of them would get mistaken for twins. And if you didn't know any better, they sounded alike and they were just joined at the hips and partners in crime. And so yeah, he was just short of his 7th birthday when, like I said, he had emergency surgery. The night before, him and sister were running to the kitchen. He tripped, bumped his head, and just a typical goose egg. It's nothing that you would go to the ER for. He didn't complain about a headache or dizziness or anything like that. And so about 4:30 the next morning, I woke up to just this screaming, and so I ran down, got him, brought him upstairs, and we tried to get some, like some Tylenol, thought it was pain medicine, and found out very quickly that he was unresponsive. My wife did a quick, check over. She's like, "You need to get him in now." So I raced him to the hospital, and within a very short time, they had him in surgery, 7-hour brain surgery. We found out later that the brain surgeon who was there wasn't even supposed to be there at the time.
Hmm.
And we found out that if we would not have lived where we lived, and if the surgeon hadn't been in that morning, when he woke up, he just was kind of like, I think I'm just going to go in early. And if none of that would have happened, then he would have died on the table.
My gosh.
That's how severe it was, and that's how much time we didn't have, And so then after the 7-hour surgery, the surgeon comes in and says, "If he wakes up, we'll talk about treatment for the cancer." And that was, like I said, that was how we found out, and it was just, I mean, it was like nothing else, just numb.
Were
That
they
was the end of our
were they able to tell you how long he had been living with cancer without you guys knowing?
No, nope. The with medulloblastomas, again, every case is different.
Mhm.
You can have 2 medulloblastomas, both stage 1, both same symptoms and everything else, but just because of the genetic compositions of each individual and everything else and how our bodies react, no. He was a typical excited hyper boy, loved Star Wars, played outside. He had complained of a headache here and there, maybe like 2 weeks ahead of time. Nothing that would have triggered a "let's go to the hospital." Nothing like, "I've got these really bad, horrible headaches day in and day out." Nothing else that would have triggered
Mhm.
any type of an early response. And so it was one of those unbeknownst to us kind of things, which made it even more disheartening and scary and everything else. So we did radiation and chemo over at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, and phenomenal with everything there, and the Ronald McDonald House. And so we did our weekly trips where Nicole and I would go back and forth, and Cassandra would come with too. So we lived on the road, every weekend to make sure that mom and dad would take turns, but then also so brother and sister can see each other, and we could be at as much of a family unit as possible and keep it as normal. Normal as a setting on a dryer. I mean, that's all you can say. That's the only normal there ever really truly is. And so we did that, and he was great. He did all of his follow-up appointments, and we had some really, really good years. And I always say, and I tell people, 2012 is probably the most memorable year in my entire life, just how good everything was. And we were taking trips and we were making memories. And um, we knew that tomorrow was never promised. And so we took advantage of that extra time, and to kind of, I guess, add to the ammunition of why I continue to do what I do is, on paper and according to research and all of the records, our son is a 5-year cancer survivor, because at his 5-year checkup, he was graduated, and he didn't have to do these tests and the checkups, and you could go to, yearly checkups and all that. And it was 2 months after we signed the paperwork for him to be a 5-year cancer survivor is when we discovered the spot on his leg, took him into the doctor, found out that it was myelodysplastic syndrome or pre-leukemia.
Mm.
And because of the treatment that he had had before, and the chemo and the radiation, the only option at that time was the beast known as bone marrow transplant. And so the same physicians that we have trusted all along did the bone marrow transplant. 25% chance that the siblings match. And these two were just like twins. So we were trying to prepare our little daughter, who was basically 7 or 8 years old, that she might have to go into surgery being a completely healthy girl. And within just a couple days, we found out that I actually was the match, and which is like a 3 or 4% chance of that happening. And so every time, it's the old Han Solo, never tell me the odds kind of a thing. And so I was a 100% match, and we did the bone marrow transplant. And anybody that's familiar with those, you have to stay in or around the facilities for 100 days. And so he was in an isolated unit with only 3 other beds. And a lot of times he was the only one there. And same thing there, where we would make our weekly trips back and forth. And we kept that going. The bone marrow transplant was successful, but unfortunately, any side effect that he could have gotten, he did. Hemolytic anemia, he had to have his spleen out, graft versus host, the steroid battle up and down with that. And because of that constant fight and battle with the graft versus host and all of those other side effects, he ended up with a third brain tumor in the fall of 2014. His bone marrow transplant was 2013, and they couldn't even do surgery in 2014 to determine what kind of a cancer it was or anything else, because of all of the steroids and everything else that his body had been subjected to. And so we discussed it, and we're just like, for us, it's the quality, not the quantity of time. And so we brought him home, and he lived out and partied for the next 2 months and did everything he wanted to do. And I asked him if he wanted to learn how to drive, and he didn't want to learn how to drive. And I asked him, do you want to try a beer? And he wanted to try a beer. And so he liked that. He didn't like driving. And so he got to continue his mission and continue to show people how to live.
Yeah, so I'm trying to get the timeline correct too.
Yeah.
So he was first diagnosed when he was 7 and had the emergency surgery.
Mhm.
And then you guys thought he was in survivor. They deemed him as in survivorship. And is that when your advocacy really started then with St. Baldrick's and different organizations, was during that time?
During that process, so he was actually, um it was 2009 when he was 7 years old. That's when we first diagnosed. He did his treatment. He did all of that. Our Make-A-Wish trip. His Make-A-Wish was to see Darth Vader, a real life lightsaber fight with Darth Vader. So they got us to Star Wars weekend at Disney World. Um, and so that was 2009. In 2010, that very next year, we got a call from the local St. Baldrick's group, and they had said, we've heard of Ian's story. We would love for him to be an honored kid, and the first honored kid in Sioux Falls. And so we went to that event, and I was hooked. Ian was still receiving his maintenance cycles and different things. So he didn't even have a full head of hair, but he still shaved his head. I shaved my head, of course. Our family did. There was a group of ladies who all there was 4 of them. They got up, they all held hands, and they shaved in support of their friend who was going through breast cancer.
Mhm.
And it was just so powerful, moving. And my friend Jamie, who's part of the First Legion, which is the Star Wars group, um, I looked at him and I'm like, I want to be a part of that. And so it's a whole different type of volunteering and different things like that. And he was Ian's personal bodyguard for the whole night.
Wow.
And so that was kind of a fun thing. And so that right away, I went up to the organizers and I said, I want to be a part of it. So
Why
it was
was
back
that?
in 2000.
Why Why was that so important for you then to say, I need to be a part of this organization now? Like, I can't wait. I need to do as much as I can in this moment, even though your family was still going through a lot and having challenges, it sounds like too, with doing family things together and being a family and creating as normal as you could because you
Mhm.
were driving to Mayo to get treatment still, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
We were. I guess you could. I mean, selfishly, I consider it therapy for me. To be involved, to dive in and know as much, and I guess feel as comfortable as I can. But I always have had the philosophy that we need to leave this earth better than we found it and put others in front of ourselves. Selfishly, I mean, I get that good feeling of helping others and different things like that. And I guess that's just part of me is I want to treat others the way that I would want to be treated. And again, especially since Ian has passed in 2014 and trying to continue to live out his mission. I remember we were sitting in the parking lot of their school church one day, and there was somebody that came up and knocked on my window, and they didn't like a bumper sticker that I had, and they just started yelling at me. And Ian and Cassandra were in the back, and I just was like, you know, "I'll I'll pray for you," and kinda kept on going and just rolled the window back up, and left it like that, and got out of his car seat and just sat up and, "Dad, why do people hate?" And that was so, so powerful. This was before he was diagnosed the first time. I think he was in kindergarten. So to have a 5-year-old, just right in your ear after somebody was yelling at you, and why do people hate? And that has sat with me for almost 20 years, and I take that stuff to heart. I take things very, very personally. And my wife and actually were just talking today, we have to live life realistically optimistic, with everything that's happened. We'd love to live with our head in the clouds and pretend everything was all sunshines and daisies, but there has to be rain and fertilizer to make the flowers grow. And so we try and do that, and we try and be as positive as we can, but
Hmm.
at the same
Yeah.
time, realistic with those
Hmm.
options, but continuing to keep his Ianisms alive with some of those things that he said.
Yeah. And let's go with that. So, keeping Ian's mission alive and some of these things that I'm hearing with his love for Star Wars, I know that the organizations that you're a part of, there there are some Star Wars themes and other themes going on, right? And so I would love to hear more about that. What are those organizations that you are sharing Ian's mission with, using
Yeah.
your skills, and how did they come about, or how did you get involved with some of them initially or create them as
Mhm.
well if you have any new initiatives that you might be working on?
Yeah, yeah. So obviously, already spoke about the St. Baldrick's Foundation and my involvement. This will be my 15th year shaving, and just in the Sioux Falls area alone, we're just reaching close to $1 million of funds raised for the St. Baldrick's Foundation, which I continue to support. They prioritize where the money needs to go, and I've spoken with the CEO, Kathleen Rudy, there, and I flat out told her that as long as your mission continues to stay the same, then you'll have my support. And so, that's kind of my baseline. That's the research part of it. When Ian passed away, Nicole, Cassandra, and myself knew that we wanted to continue his legacy. And so that was right away in 2015 after he had passed, and we created the Ian Keisacker Hospice Endowment it's called the Doherty House, which is a hospice care facility through Avera here in Sioux Falls. And we wanted to make sure that, people knew that children get cancer too, and a lot of the acknowledgments, or however you would want to phrase it, are in remembrance of people, but And unfortunately, it's more and more every day. It used to be every 3 minutes children were diagnosed with cancer. Now it's every 2 minutes a child in the world is diagnosed with cancer. And so it's not going away. It's actually getting worse. And so we want to make sure that people know that. So that was kind of on our, on the hospice side of things. He had a lot of treatment and care at the Avera. We have two wonderful medical facilities here in Sioux Falls, Sanford and Avera, and Ian was at Avera. And so at that time, we knew we wanted to do something fun and different and unique. And so we started the Ian's Thumbs Up Fund. And so Nicole and Cassandra and I really put a lot of time and effort and prayer into, okay, what should we do? And so we found one of his signature pictures of his thumbs up, and we made that kind of the silhouette logo for the charity, and providing different fun things. So we've done everything from providing gaming cards to gift cards to a family being able to create a piece of art, so a permanent piece of remembrance together, and helping with gas cards and food and different things like that. And so that was started in 2015 as well, and continued on, and kind of that was kind of our routine for several years with St. Baldrick's and Ian's Thumbs Up Fund. And then in about 2017, my age is showing because I can't remember the specific date, but 2017, 2018, we were having our annual St. Baldrick's head shaving event. And I had gotten to know a gentleman by the name of Dr. Luke George here in town. And he was another Star Wars goofy dress up guy, and he was Shriner dressing up as in the clowns and everything. So he liked that, and very bubbly personality like us. And him and his wife and their little girl had been to one of our head shaving events, and I was just telling him, hey, you need to get involved. Well, he's bald, and so it's hard to shave a bald guy. And he refused to let it grow out. So, some people, so they like that bald, clean look, and so him and I were talking back and forth. And this other project called Voices Against Cancer is the brainchild between Dr. George and a friend of his that local people might remember. His name is Wally Wingert. And Wally grew up in the southeast South Dakota, Aberdeen, Sioux Falls area, and very active in the media community, the radio. And he took a big risk just picking everything up and moving out to California. And he had a dream of being an actor and a voice actor. And he made that come true. And he's a very popular voice actor in a lot of anime and different Batman cartoons. And he's done the Riddler, and he's been the voice of the Tonight Show with Jay Leno before. And I mean, he is very, very long resume, very, very impressive. And so Dr. George and Wally Winger were out at a convention, and looking at all of these people and the excitement with this pop culture. And they're thinking, about bringing this to Sioux Falls, but to do it for a type of charity. And so that's how Voices Against Cancer, and Wally being a voice actor, they came up with the Voices Against Cancer. And so it was very early on after they had come up with that idea where they brought me in and said, you're the charity guy, and the passion with what I was doing, and knew of Ian's passing. Neither one of them were able to unfortunately know Ian, but they knew of Ian through our continued discussion to make sure his memory lives on. And so that's kind of where it all started from. That was we had 6 or 7 celebrities ready to go, and we had our facility, and we were getting things rolling. And then that little thing called COVID happened and shut everything down. It was 2021, I believe. And we were discussing and talking, and knowing that this is a fundraiser for children with cancer, and children with cancer were going to be there. I made sure that we knew that they're going to have low immune system. This was still a time of high priority, different things like that. So we waited another year. I'm glad we did, because we got even more celebrities and a few more helpers that kind of helped out. And so we stumbled through our first year, and we did really well with that. It has continued to grow. And the first year was called the Voices Against Cancer Initiative. And we've kind of morphed that into what's called the 605 Pop Culture Convention now, or the 605 Pop Con. And they're going to have the 4th annual one this year. And it's at the Sioux Falls Convention Center at the end of June. Wonderful opportunity to see all different kinds of pop culture people. And our organization has grown so much, and the charity side of it has grown so much, that we continue to have more people joining the group, and I've actually had to step back from the convention side of it to focus just on the charity side of it because of how large and how much of an impact we've been able to have on that and
Mhm.
continue to have through our
What is it that is driving this growth on the charity side, do you think?
community. It's the purpose is to grow a community of support. I've got like 3 or 4 other different ideas going on in my mind and opportunities that have been given to me where I've been able to help others. I've helped 2 other groups start their own nonprofits dealing with different pediatric issues. And so trying to stay focused and putting the correct hat on and make
Mhm.
sure I'm wearing the right hat at the right time. But there were a lot of doors slammed on our face and a lot of hurdles to overcome that
Mhm.
people don't really necessarily think about. Unfortunately, and this was 10, 15 years ago when we were dealing with it. Some aspects has gotten better and some have gotten worse. And we want to take the policies and the politics and the rigmarole out of everything. These children and these families are going through cancer. They need help. Period. That should be the only thing. And so we were very blessed, and I've kind of morphed and made our vision of the charity into the best of those people and those organizations that have helped us, you know.
Mhm.
And so basically we have online applications on our website. And if the child's currently going through cancer treatment, we want to help. We've provided gift cards for gas, for travel assistance. We've provided groceries. For some it's been groceries. Others have been 2 months behind on their house payments. So we've gotten the information, we've made their mortgage payments for them. And so we want to try and help them financially as best we can in all stages. And that's the other thing too, is that these support groups vary depending on your stages, depending on where you're receiving treatment. Maybe, you're a current fighter. Well, then you have your group of survivors. But what about those of us that have lost a child? Those are all different, aspects of childhood cancer. And those support networks vary for each of those. And we want to make sure that this is kind of an all encompassing aspect of childhood cancers, that's the connecting bind, whether you're currently going through it, whether you're a survivor, or whether you're a family who's lost a child. We're all connected and we all deserve that support. And
Mhm.
just let the people know that the opportunity is there.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the hats that you have to wear, but what are some of the gifts and experiences that you've drawn upon that you have put to use with the Voices Against Cancer or, Ian's Thumbs Up or other initiatives related to Voices Against Cancer that you have seen yourself put into action?
Yeah. So through the possibilities of the pop culture convention, the biggest thing are these connections to these beautiful celebrity souls. Most of them, when you say Sioux Falls, South Dakota, they're just like, "Oh, you have an airplane that can go there?"
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, "Yeah, we have running water."
Yep.
And once they get here, they're very impressed and very surprised. And for me, so the night before the convention, the Friday night, Dr. George and his wife Gina open up their very beautiful home to the celebrities and the children and the families. So these celebrities can see why they're here. And it is so beautiful. Every single year we have had this, there has been a very personal connection. We have had children connect with these celebrities to the point where they've given out each other's phone numbers and are texting back and forth. And through that, they've made very special connections. We've had a little boy, a local boy who had passed away, and that had made a very personal connection to Emily Swallow, who's in The Mandalorian and in Supernatural and so many different shows and series, as well as Anthony Starr from The Boys and different things like that. These kids are making connections with the people, not the characters, but the people, and getting to know them on a personal level. We have had probably close to 2 dozen personalized videos from celebrities to children. If there's a child that is a big Pokemon fan, then we try and find the voice actors who've done Pokemon and have them do a little recording for the children. It kind of stems back from when Ian was going through his bone marrow transplant. And at that time, a friend of ours knew Tom Kane. And Tom Kane is a very, very well known voice actor, most well known for, in our way, anyways, from Yoda and the Clone Wars. And since that, he's suffered a stroke. He's recovering from that. He's doing wonderfully with that, with his recovery. When he did that, if his voice was still able to, I know that he would be willing to help so many more the way he helped Ian. And his recording that he did was only 30 seconds.
Mhm.
He did it while he was in an airport, but it was the Ian, sick you are. This is Yoda. And this was 2 days after Ian had a transplant. All of his blood levels were at zero. It took him as much as he could just to bring his head up. But when he heard that, he just had this beautiful smile on his face, and it helped me as well. And so I thought that was an example of the kindness and the compassion that other people, they didn't have to do that. They didn't have to reach out to their friend who, took time out of their day to make a little video to send. They didn't have to do that, but they did. And we've been able to do that. And my partner in crime, PT Dan at the Sanford Castle, he's the PT therapist, and he is the modern day Mr. Rogers. As humble as he may be, he's an amazing friend, an amazingly kind and caring and compassionate individual. And so him and I are kind of the spearheads of getting a hold of Sonic and Tails and just a wide variety. We've done celebrities, YouTubers have reached out. We had a patient who was composing a song with a YouTuber. And so that, without the pop culture convention, it's extremely hard to be able to reach out to these people and just out of the blue say, hey, would you mind doing something like this for a child? We've
Yeah.
had
So
different celebrities sign autographs and bring, mail different little packages, and it's just the list of celebrities continues to grow. And we have another one with some other gentlemen here in town, a pair of twins. I call them the Wonder Twins, the Hamsey twins, that have opened up Izzy's gym. And that's yesterday. The original Bozo the Clown was there, and he got to meet, I think there was 4 or 5 different honor families that were able to be there that day. And the parents, again, that was an example of the parents were in seventh heaven. They're just like, I remember seeing you on WGN and growing up, and
wow.
he's done some newer voice acting that the kids knew about. And so to bring those smiles to those faces and the different things, it goes beyond the monetary
Yep.
support as well.
Yeah.
And I know that Ian would be proud that we're combining his love of all things geeky and him being, he always was very proud of his self-proclaimed nerddom, and we want to continue to carry on that support in a very unique and different way.
Hmm. Yeah. So what I'm hearing is you're definitely using your skill of just having more of a bold personality and not being afraid to go out and ask what you're looking for.
Right? Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of my dear friends,
N-
Nick, has always said, you don't know till you try.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
there's a reason why my nose is so flat. A lot of doors have been slammed in it. And that's okay. If it helps somebody else, then I'll take it.
Yeah, that's right. And then also, like, so many stories it sounds like that you have of how you guys have been able to make an impact by, or the people that have been impacted by just these little voiceovers that and voice messages to cheer up kids who just need like that little boost at times. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yep.
I'm
Yep. Just
sure
a little boost.
do what are maybe share another story of a something that you witnessed or a story that you heard that really reaffirmed like the importance of the organizations that you're working with.
There's, in our short amount of time that we've done this, it's there's so many just glorious stories from kids, with what they've done, the opportunities that have been given, whether they're on hospice. For some, it's a celebration of life, and kind of like Ian, where they're not going to go out without a fight, but at the same time they're realistic and they want to live life to its fullest. And maybe that's, having the opportunity where we can provide an RV so they're able to go cross country to see a favorite band, or to see a sunrise that you wouldn't be able to see flying in a plane and different things like that, and to be able to have that quality time with your family, um, to having super celebrities take 5 minutes out of their time to provide a very intimate, very personalized message, of using the force and having these children truly become part of it. All of it is just, and I guess there's a couple initiatives that we're working on right now, but something that I guess is impacting me and really tugging at my heartstrings is the number of families and the number of we have probably close between 75 and 100 different honored families already just in our region alone. The number of families that have already given back. They don't need to give back. We want them to, this is a no strings attached kind of thing, but the number of families that have already, no, we want to help out. We've got a couple different I I deliver donuts every Friday. One of our local partners, Flyboy Donuts, will donate their leftover donuts at the end of the day, and so every Friday I go around. Well, as my schedule gets a little bit busier, I need help, and I've had an honored mom that have reached out, and she's signed up for I don't know how many different weeks where it's a way to give back, and it's doesn't take too long, it's a Friday afternoon for an hour, and another one where we have a Chase the Ace event where a couple establishments, and so you bid to try and pick the right ace of hearts, and we have another family that's just a beautiful souls, great family, and they're just like, we want to help, we want to give back, and to see our community continue to grow, and to see that interaction. For me, it's to look back and see three different families. One of them that has a survivor, one of them who is going through treatment, and one who's lost. And to see all three of those families sitting around a couch or a chairs, tables, whatever, and just talking. And it can be about cancer. It can be about the hatred they have towards cancer. It can be anything and everything. It could be answering questions. It can be just sharing their love of what we have. And that's the other thing, we're trying to broaden our horizons, because not everybody likes pop culture. Not everybody likes Star Wars or Star Trek or sports or music. And so we try to continue to expand that. So if there's anybody out there watching, we're always willing to take more. But we're right now and I'm hoping to get this out on social media. It's the Giving Kids a Voice campaign. And
Mhm.
right now we have two of them that are done. We have our daughter, Cassandra, who's the sibling. She lost her brother. And Emily Swallow was gracious enough to share her voice. And so she is the voice for our child, because so many of our children don't have a voice. That's the thing, is that, adult cancers and different things like that, and just topics in general, it's the adults that are, the loudest here is who you hear. Well, these
Yeah.
kids are the most vulnerable and they don't have a voice. And so there's a reason why, if funding is to go from 4% of the national budget to 8%, it has to be our voice. And so the purpose of this campaign is for these celebrities to be the voice for the children. And so Cassandra has written a couple paragraphs of what cancer did to her and what it took from her, and Emily was her voice. Another very outgoing young man named Kian is texting back and forth with Anthony Starr, and so Anthony was gracious enough, because he is extremely busy doing filming and everything else right now, where he was able to take Kian's story and put his voice to it. And so I'm
Mhm.
hoping to continue to get some more stories from the kids, and to reach out to some of these celebrities who would be willing to take a couple minutes out of their day to really show a child that we hear you and we're listening.
Mhm.
And we want to make sure that the kids know that they are special and that they're unique. And so there's a lot of people that have very, very good intentions, that, you want to bring this. And the number of times where Ian would look at a lovely gift that somebody brought in, and he'd look at us with these big eyes and he'd be like, I don't know who this is, or do I have to keep this? And just so kind and so we want to take the generosity that people have, but make sure that it is specific and individual to the children.
Yeah.
Because a lot of
Yeah.
times it is. They're the quietest voice in the room, and you might have doctors and nurses and parents all complaining or talking or this or that or trying to figure everything out to make the child better. But sometimes it's the child that we need to listen to.
Yeah. There, I like that, the basis of that initiative. I'm looking forward to listening to more of those. I did listen to the 2 that you sent me, so thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
So I want to wrap up with a final question. So, Rob, for those who are inspired by your work and learning about the initiatives that you support today, and they want to take action in their own communities, what advice would you give them on how they can effectively support families affected by childhood cancer?
Well, selfishly, I'll just say, go to www.voicesagainstcancer.org. um, but we also know that, I mean, it takes a village. It takes so many of us, and I wish I had more hours in the day to add more resources to our website, because so many people in so many different communities have so many great ideas, and with the technology we have today, we have to try and broaden our horizons and make our connections and grow this community. And so for anybody that's out there, it's just like what is right behind you. You have to act to impact, and don't wait until tomorrow. I mean, that's any advice I'm going to tell people is do it. You don't know until you try. If it happens, great. And if it doesn't, how many different Pinterest things that are out there that it's not a failure unless you don't get up, and one of my idols is Walt Disney, who, is I go back to the fact of you can always be a kid at heart, and you never know what you can do until you start trying. And that's the first step, is to try, to take it, to actually act on it. And so that's what I would tell all these people, and wanting to start a project or whatever else, is just do it.
Yeah.
I don't know where to start. Well, that's why the good Lord told somebody to invent Google. And it's amazing with all of that, ask,
Hmm.
you know, ask around, find out, reach out, but just do it.
Great. Well, thank you for that advice, and thank you for all the work that you're doing in around Sioux Falls and in South Dakota, and clearly the lives that you guys are reaching probably across the United States too, with some of those connections that you're making with the celebrities and bringing them into the initiative as well, and being part of that advocacy. I think a big part of that too is to bringing others in who might not have even been aware that it's possible for them to support an organization like Voices Against Cancer with their skills. So
Right.
thank you for doing that. So
Thank you for helping to share the message.
you're welcome. So thanks for being here on Act to Impact. You've been listening to Act to Impact with Brandi DeVries. If this show ignited your fire and inspired you to take action to make an impact, please share this episode with a friend, leave a 5-star review, or write a review to let others know how the show impacted you. I can't wait to see the action you are taking to make an impact, and I'd love for you to share that with our community. Go ahead and tag me on social media as you are out making an impact in the world. Do you have a story to share and want to be a guest on Act to Impact? I'd love to connect with you.